Hi, welcome back to Wild Speculations. I'm Daniel, alone this evening. Uh, Tonight I'm talking about Exandria Unlimited Calamity, Episode 2, Bitterness and Dread. And right off the bat, uh, I thought about mentioning it last episode, but this one it became more apparent even than last time. That Brennan's show does not produce their content the same way that Critical Role does. I think they play and they find moments later to do their cuts. And I don't know if they necessarily take breaks. They certainly don't call them out. So it's been interesting watching him find those legs. Where Abria, I think, probably watches the show more than Brennan does. And so she's more familiar with that timing, that rhythm. And I think it's funny. But we begin where we left off, because as Brennan says in his recap, every moment is important on this night. But we get the investigation of the Hobmadad. That it has a mark of, but no engine. And he discovers with a 6 medicine check. And I like Brennan saying you can make, investigation, perception, whatever, but your best result is going to come from, this skill. And he did it a couple times. And that's important. I don't always do that. I tend to just let them make the choice and then I'll decide. But calling it out, I think, is helpful. But he gets that there are odd growths. And to sort of highlight what's at stake, there's a sending stone. Although I don't think it was technically a sending stone, because you can only cast sending once. But anyway, they're talking back and forth. It's the tattletale younger sibling who wants to be just like Dad. And of course, Dad encourages it. It's so rare for players to have characters that have children. But I think Travis liked that more than Laura likes her romance. And it was very nice. And again, Travis described it as a sobering moment, which I guess it would be if you're used to just sort of looking, he's amongst dead bodies that he created. Rose, that's an interesting point. That if you are in one place, it's easier to have children if you're not moving around a lot. Um, I don't know. It would be interesting to have the child along with you on an adventure. Um, I know I say that as the DM that kills pets left and right without any remorse, and mounts. Uh, but you don't have to take the child into the dungeon. Uh, you can bring them along with you, set them up in the inn. I'll be back, and then go off into the dangerous part. It'd be an interesting dynamic, I think. Well, yeah, Luke would just with the ruby, yeah. Um, Although the disaster was more about the dog, I think, than Luke. Interesting way that he brought us back into the moment of Pervon leaving. This is the next session, so he gives the players another insight check. What I termed I should have said moment kind of thing. And the interesting phrase from Brennan was, some things are whether you want to name it or not. Because if we don't name it, if we don't acknowledge it, it doesn't exist. And he prefaced it with the idea of how deities get their worship and how we create our reality. And it was interesting to give the objectivist point of view to the obvious vengeance paladin who has sworn an oath of vengeance against the city he is apparently in charge of protecting. Unsaid. All of that unsaid. That's just how I'm reading into it. But, I mean, as the episode unfolds, it just becomes more and more clear that Xerxes is after some blood. And he goes after Nidus. And Nidus gets to his offices, to the guild hall, and his gnome major domo, artificer, his don't be suspicious. I just thought that's the meme that was in my head when he got there. Gets 4 taxman automatons. And he says, should we add this porter to Porco's list of folks with bad memories? And they're like, and everyone at the table is like, what? And, oh, so good. But I personally think the gnome is the one in on the messing with that Hodmedad. Or he knows who, or he could know who did it if it wasn't him. Sam and Travis playing the mirror game was fun. The changeling turning his, making his face look like the one that just told him we have to guard our faces. I'm wondering if Sam is ever going to do a changeling again, or if he is thinking about that as his backup character for Fresh Cut Grass, just because he's having a lot of fun with it. And I loved, yeah, him being a bard. Yes, exactly. And I loved his response to the question of what should we do. Ignore it and obfuscate, which is basically statecraft of the failed state. That's basically what Russia does. But one of the things that I found interesting is when they are talking to each other about the information that they found, and they sort of come together before they break up again, is Brennan says it was 292 years ago that Avalier took off. That number is not divisible by 7. So I'm wondering if the every 7 years thing will be revealed as not really penance, but sort of you will produce the tithe every 7 years, is because of the Raven Queen's ascension, which was 119 years ago, which is divisible by 7. I'm wondering if it will be revealed why 7. It is not one of the sort of sacred numbers. 3, 6, 9, those are more sacred numbers. So I'm interested to see how that goes. But Jangdor, to get back to your observation about not really understanding how it was working, we get the ley rudder, which I take is simply the engine that detects and moves the city along the ley lines, which is how they gather the ether energy. Presumably, it was built when the city was built. It certainly seems to have some kind of connection with the calyx, the arboreal calyx. But I don't know, part of me wonders if it came later. Like I could see that the city had desires to move along ley lines before they entered into this new arrangement with the Druids, but that it now has to happen every 7 years means they have an impetus to be as efficient as possible in their movements across Exandria. So yeah, we get the locket from Evandrin, and the observation that these automatons are not built by the Armorer Arcane, which means there may have been a civil war brewing in Avalier if the Taxman is being built by somebody else, and they were armed. I don't know if any more of that is going to be relevant. Also, one of the things that I think was interesting on my rewatch is the 120 years thing. Because 292 also is not divisible by that, which means he didn't need the conflux to raise the city. Which I think is an interesting bit of world building. But we learn that she has constructed the astral layrite, and the remnants of the Solar's bow is the missing piece that she needed as a object attuned to a different plane. So the engine, her astral layrite, as I understand it, basically is an engine to cast plane shift on a massive area targeting tens of thousands at least of people. We haven't been given a population size of the city currently. So it's difficult to say. But everything is going according to plan after the thing drops, and we get the "it's beautiful," which I like later Travis calling attention to. Is your hand sunburned? Do you have a handprint shadow on your face? And they're like, yeah, you're probably one of the only people to ever say that and live. Because usually that line is followed by death in a spectacular manner. Although we, the audience, know what's coming up. So maybe it is. Rose, I don't know. I don't know if it's to a random spot. Although the text of plane shift prevents you from shifting into any hazardous terrain. And because the city flies, most skies are going to be safe. So not necessarily pinpointing where you're going to go may be the safer option with this city. Rather than say, I want to go to the Dawnfather's Palace on Mount Celestia, and you're taking the whole city of Avalor there. Some bad things could happen if you do that. But just saying, I want to go to the Celestial Plane, you will pop out in a place that is safe enough. And we get the description of her little toy moving in the same direction as the city and then upward. And the reason I think it goes upward is because that is traditionally where heaven is. Never entities. In fact, her little bauble probably popped up next, like within eye shot of a solar, or possibly even like in the dining hall of a deity. So we may see agents of said deities appear. We'll see. But also interesting is when, in the episode 1, when Xerxes was having his vision, and if you look down and see stars, what do you see when you look up? And it was Earth. That would be the view of the gods in the sky. If the gods are in the sky, or the intermediary between the Earth, or Exandria, and beyond, then their point of view is the stars are below them and their creation above them. That would be the arrangement. Which is interesting, because generally we tend to view, like, the betrayer gods and the primordials bound in the earth. They are bound below. So the fact that below the gods might be the elder gods is another interesting twist to put on it. And an interesting way that they've set up this cosmology, just with these little things that I'm enjoying. But she teleports her toy, gets confirmation that it is safely on the other side, and then an alarm goes off. And I loved the interaction, and I love Brennan going, I mean, you can make a deception check if you want. She says, oh, I absolutely do want to make a check. Rolls I think it was a natural 1, or a 12. I think it was a 12. The natural 1 comes later. So yeah, he knows something's wrong. And then her automaton, her aormaton, says the alarm is not with the astral ley right. It is a general power system error. And they've had an 8% energy loss out of their Aether batteries, which would be about 25% of their total tithe that they're going to owe. And she's told it's coming from the arboreal calyx. And we learn then that the arboreal calyx takes half of the Drushari tithe, which means only half of the energy that they are bringing goes into the ground. The other half goes to this tree. Which we also learn the arboreal calyx was built around the tree. At the next landing after the Raven Queen's ascension, which is 17 replacements ago, because 119 is divisible by 7, which is why I say that perhaps the every 7 years thing didn't start until that event. We also get the I hate this place from our first night. And so much of that moment gave me Rorschach from Watchmen vibes, where he's standing on top of the skyscraper and we're getting his inner monologue about how the city is full of refuse and drowns in blood and all this stuff, and he's like, and everyone's gonna cry out for me to save them, and I will whisper no. Which is also why I say, like, Xerxes being a vengeance paladin fits right up there. Yeah. And then we get, I'm here for you, whatever you need. And Brennan pausing a moment and saying, that's the second time a first knight of Avalere has said those words to you. And we're getting all of this stuff. And I hope it can come together in an amazing moment at the climax. But I'm afraid it may come out sooner. I'll explain what I mean in a bit. We'll come back to it. I loved Sam saying, oh, I wanted to get to the, what did he call it? Beverage buffet, I think is what he called it. The party where you're changing what's in the glass to trick people, or to get people to guess what's in the glass. And Abria, I'm trying to tell you that I just changed the world forever, and that I figured out how to transport us to other planes, and all you can think about is, this beverage thing. I forget what exactly she said. And he's like, well, I can be late. I swear I have seen conversations similar to that in the hallways of conventions. Crisis is happening with someone's costume is usually how it's going. And then somebody says, well, I wanted to get to this panel, and it starts it. And then everyone's like, I can be late. What do you need? Yeah, that's what was in my head. I loved the if we can go to other planes, we'll be the same as gods, or put another way, as Marisha said, something like, the only thing that separates the gods from us is they're there and we're here. Which speaks to the hubris of the wizards of the Arcanum, Age of Arcanum, which is something that Matt has been sort of drilling into them every time they talk about it. And it's a bit of what they saw in Campaign 2 when dealing with lewdness. And how, he basically remained in power. Unless we're going to get a one-shot where they take out lewdness. We'll see. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but it would be interesting. Sam's, you're always gone at important times. There's all these little things that are coming out about the disillusion of their marriage and their relationship. And when she gets mad about that, he says, almost with the strength and venom of Scanlan confronting all of them when they covered him in pudding, when they brought him back to life, and they had his daughter there. It was almost that level of venom. Where he's like, you have no idea what secrets I've kept for you. And he has Xerxes make a insight check. Okay. Doesn't get high enough to know. Which is foreshadowing for what's coming up. And it's after that foreshadowing that Brennan intervenes to prevent the players from spinning their wheels. Which he gives them the layout of, here's all the loose threads. Excuse me. That you haven't followed up on. Which refocuses the players. Because where they were at, the temptation is so strong for people to use their meta knowledge to try to justify and find ways to uncover things which have been at the table confirmed to be being concealed, but the characters do not know that anything is being concealed because they have failed their insight checks against a party member. We're beginning to reach that point on Sunday nights with everyone in my character, where they're expecting him to lie, which is sort of mission accomplished on my part, because now that they expect me to lie, it becomes, now how can I lie to them and they won't suspect that it's a lie. Because lying is a skill, Mr. Worf, like any other, and it requires practice. And we get the inspiring leader speech from Xerxes, where he therein says, I kneel to no god, because once you kneel to one, you kneel to all of them. Which, with what has come before and what comes later this episode, it's interesting dichotomy, borderline hypocrisy. Because yes, Rose, exactly. Kneeling implies acceptance of service. And in both times that he has been in, now confirmed, Asmodeus's presence, he serves him. He helps him. He provides succor. So I'm interested to see if that is brought up or thrown in his face in any way. So who knows? We may get that, we may not. But it bears being spoken of, is well all I'm saying. Xerxes gets a nat 20 on his religion check, which he is told is the tumorous growth that this guy has, the body, are from the infernal runes that he has carved in him. And an infernal word, a label, puppet, is what he gets. And that this individual became a cleric of the Betrayer Gods 2 weeks ago. Xerxes tracing the runes with his fingers, and especially Marisha, I copy the runes into her spell book, essentially, because I'm pretty sure the more and more evidence for her being a scribe wizard was just all through this episode. So basically, she has written these spells, right, into her spell book. But there's no wisdom save. I think is arguably a misstep on Brennan's part. Especially given with what we find out later in the episode when we get to the oracles. That even the other oracles just trying to help the one who first went insane drove them all crazy. And it's a common theme, it's a common thread in Cthulhu stories, which, you know, with Stranger Things using Vecna this season, and, you know, Mind Flayers and Cthulhu stuff, first few seasons, they're not that far off. Just, you know, and for him not to tease that with madness, just the copying. Like I have done in my games, people who I say, you see this mural or whatever, runes, text written on a wall. And it's not until they say, I go and read it, or what does it say, that they have fallen into my trap. And my trap is, you now cast what is written on the wall because that's what it's designed to do. And it's never good. Because, you know, the seeking of knowledge, of seeking of forbidden knowledge is the sin itself, is the what's due, your due punishment for that, or reward, as the case may be. But it's a reward from the other person's point of view, not yours. So, they may think, webbing your fingers and making your skin, grow out from your sides to give you bat wings as a human being is a reward. You might not think that, but that's what happened when you read the thing on the wall. That kind of thing. Yeah. Also, in this scene, we get the first... Well, no, because I guess it happened in episode 1, too. With the question of who did we betray. But it's explicitly said in this episode that the prime deities are colonizers, basically. And I'm interested to see how that plays out in Critical Role, in Campaign 3. Because now, I've joked that their choice of name of the group puts them in league with the Hells. But viewing the betrayers as honoring their promise to the Primordials and rebelling against the other colonizers, right, is an interesting place for the mortals to be coming up on this new celestial event. And with the rising of Ruidus as well. So, yeah. I'm interested to see if that plays a part in the regular campaign. And if that follows. Sam, I don't want to say taking the rare initiative, because occasionally he sees stuff and he says stuff and it's great. But him pointing out that, well, if he targeted a betrayer god, there's no way anyone would know because there are no temples. So who knows who he took the place of? Vespin Chloris, i.e. Vecna. Which led Brennan to let him make an insight check on the world. Something is at work, but not finished, he says. And which leads Marisha to go, wait, how did this thing get in here? Which she goes back into her thing and discovers that a Hadmadad came with Lycretia Hollow. And Marisha talking about, she goes to the CEO overlook window. Which made me wonder, does Travis have one of those at the Critical Role offices? I wonder if they'll talk, well, I guess no, it probably won't come up on Four-Sided Dive. Maybe in a future episode, we'll see. So that's an interesting point, Rose. And magical wards that a wizard would put on their home uh, probably would only detect magic or prevent evocation spells. Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of these wizards are going to be using disguise self uh, to change their appearance during the party, perhaps, or uh, horror of horrors. You discover that you're wearing the same thing as your rival. Quickly cast your illusion. Um, there's just a lot of minor ways that having a general dispel on anyone who walks through your door would probably be seen as gauche uh, in a majocracy. Um, that'd be like you having something on your door that removes all of the makeup from somebody who walks in your house, or that removes the hair dye from their hair to reveal their natural hair color, because that's that kind of thing. So I don't think it's a whole in that sense. Um, and again, the Empire is a result of lessons learned from the fall and those kind of ego trips. And also, that's a security point. But yes, yeah, it shows the evolution and the difference of, 800 or 1,000 years. Vasselheim hates all arcane magic. And I think the Empire is sort of in that same kind of vein, because the survivors of the Calamity were who founded the Empire. And, they are very, you can't worship anything but the approved deities. You can't, so, like, they're controlling who you can worship. They're definitely controlling what spells you can cast and where. And yes, it's like the airport. But they realized there was a gift. Where's the gift? Speaking of airports. And explosions. And they all start freaking out. The fireworks have started. And then we go to break. Come back, and in their investigation of, troll, DM, where does the line drawn, use the fears of your players against them. That's what you gotta do. But we learned that Magister Cormorant was involved in an assassination plot against Pervon, who the trigger person was apparently going to be Lucretia. And our party splits again. And this time Brennan just rolls a d6. Where are we going? And I think it's becoming a competition at the table who can monopolize the time the most because they've been so split in this campaign. Because Marisha and Abria are like, it'd be cool if it was us again. But it's not. We go to the Herald's Tome. And I wonder if Travis asking if it was a 5 or a 6 was him trying to catch Brennan in, I'll roll for it, but didn't actually, like he rolled a die, but decided where he wanted to go. So, interesting. They find a disgraced reporter's collection of work. And there's a large part of it that is about Vespin Chloris. And we get the lore and conspiracy reveal. And in the background, he's reading lips. The Tree of Names. And Marisha sort of has a moment, which later she confirms with arbor, tree, the arboreal calyx. And Brennan's like, yeah, it was almost like it was there the whole time. And I think Matt also does this, especially with his use of Latin, and why it can sometimes be, what does that word translate to try to pick apart what he's saying, which either my general knowledge or, Scott looking stuff up, we dig into sometimes. Now, if we had learned that the arboreal calyx was important prior, I would have known right away that, oh, okay, no, that's, But these things are revealed in their own time. But Travis discovers, and then Sam lies convincingly, a potential cover-up from the Herald's Tome, getting back to his "you have no idea what secrets I've kept for you" statement. And this reporter's entire work of Evandrin's disappearance and stuff is so, like, I'm so glad he failed the insight check, because it sets up the similar kind of moment that we have in Battlestar Galactica at the end, when the final 5 all put their hands in the goo because they're going to give the secrets of resurrection technology to the Cylons to leave humans alone. And one of them, as a precursor, is like, well, we might see things that we don't want others to know or whatever. And the chief sees the murder of his wife. And he just hand out of the goo and chokes the life out of someone he's been with for like 2,000 years. That he's been friends with for 2,000 years. Because she killed his wife. I'm hoping for a moment like that these lies, this layer of lies, and I think it's all going to hinge on who the boy's mother is, because we haven't talked about that either. And there have been some hints that it is Abria's character. Very subtle, but I think it might be her. And that she was Evandrin's first spouse. And that locket was sort of the divorce gift. This isn't working out between us, but I'll always be there for you. It was an amicable split, you know, and she knew she did not want a child, could not take care of a child, was more interested in her magic. And so Evandrin took the child and then met his next spouse to be. And everything, the child seems to be, was born around the two replenishments prior, which means he was conceived on the way to that replenishment. Or maybe they weren't a spouse. Maybe it was just a fling that happened. Or possibly Marisha's character, Porco's enchantment magic messing with things. The Magisterium turned out to be a one-round combat solved with the To Whom It May Concern fireball. 4th level, not 3rd. And the debate over do you need to see to counterspell, and the observation that it is not in the description of the spell. It is not. And Brennan says it's not in the player's handbook. It is. It is in the general rules on spellcasting. It's, yeah, just made me laugh. The number of times in a comment thread that I'll say something and someone's like, that's not in the rules, and I give them the page number. It's right there. Player's Handbook, or DMG. But yeah, just funny. And I thought, in discussing this, I thought about trying to do an impression of Jeremy Crawford, who he cites at the table. Which we had that moment in Campaign 2 when Caleb cast Counterspell through his wall of fire. So, yeah. And they find a letter from a druid telling the wizards, we cannot tell you the purpose of the tree. Yeah, so good. I have a feeling that the leaves on the tree bear the names of people who are living, and when they die, the leaves fall. And there are some leaves that are evergreen and do not fall, and those are the gods. And the reason why her ascension and why no one remembers her name is because she plucked her leaf from the tree, or did something to her leaf. So yeah. And the Hall of Prophecy, madness passing through, false prophecies. Xerxes gets possessed, and the sympathy for the devil theme comes full circle, and Avalier is not my home. For me, the nail in the coffin for this city and the beginning of the calamity, which is why I say I said it discussing episode 1, he's the main character. His understanding of betrayal from his friends is going to be what turns him. And that's why I kind of want that Battlestar Galactica moment where the lie has been concealed perfectly until this moment. And when he learns the truth, he just loses it and kills the Herald or his or Abria's character. Surprise attack, bang, crits, dump the divine smite, just one shot, dead. And then that death causes the city to fall. But we'll have to wait and see on this coming Thursday. Hopefully Scott will be able to join me next week, next Tuesday. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other, everybody.